Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Welcome back. It's Talking Books and Writing and Stuff, and today we're talking books and writing and stuff from Bellingham, Washington. Laura Kalpakian is on the line, as we used to say in the old days. So, good afternoon. How's things in Whatcom County today?
Sunny.
Sunny.
It's nice and sunny today, yeah.
Oh, so who knows what'll happen tomorrow, but...
Yeah.
We were out there in May when my friends were saying, oh, the weather in May is it may rain, it may be sunny, it may not, we don't know.
So. As I recall, May was, and most of June was pretty gloomy, so we're making up for it now.
That's good. So, Laura Kalpakian, I was living on Garden Street in Bellingham in the 90s. I guess when I first ran across your name, you had a book called Colette.
No. Cosette.
Cosette. Cosettee.
It was
oh man,
affiliated with Les Miserables, with the character from Les Miserables.
Right. So I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What was the inspiration for that?
Oh, I'd always been a great Francophile, and it seemed to me that it was a story that was, and I also have backgrounds in European history, and so it seemed like it was a story that could be told, and it was a lot more work than I ever thought, as most projects turn out to be.
Exactly. Now, you started out your professional life, as a social worker, which some of that plays into the book I have in front of me called Graced Land. By Laura Kalpakian. Why did you switch to a writing career from social work?
No, that's also incorrect.
Oh.
I was briefly a social worker. Like for 6 months, I was ill-suited to this job, and it was not the beginning of what I think of as my career by any means. In fact, it was just like a little detour that I would never have mentioned except when I went to write Graceland. The central character in that is a young social worker just out of college who was ill-suited to the job. Right. And so all that came back to me vividly. But I did not ever have the makings of a social worker, I'm sorry to say. So, but I used it for the book.
Right. And how does that, tie in with Elvis? Have you followed Elvis along throughout your life?
No. I mean, actually, here's how that happened. I was never. I mean, prior to writing that book, I was not an Elvis fan. I was really kind of indifferent to Elvis. And, but since then, in the many years since then, my whole family, we are dedicated Elvis fans. But what had happened was this, that, I grew up in Southern California, and, my mom was, secretary to an orthopedic surgeon there at County Hospital in San Bernardino, where they lived. And when Elvis died, there was a house there that on your way to County Hospital, she went into this paroxysm of mourning and set up this shrine on the porch. And it stayed there for at least a decade. And so sometimes when I would go back there and I would take my mom to work so I could use her car, we'd always pass that house. So years pass, and my mom and dad both retired, and they moved up here to Bellingham because I have the only 2 grandchildren, and I was a mom on my own with them. And so my mom and I were here at my house, and we're just, making casual conversation one day, and we happened to start talking about the Elvis Shrine house there. And there's this little ordinary, modest tract house in a kind of a rundown neighborhood. And I said to my mom, just kind of by the by, that I always thought a woman with 2 daughters must live there. And the minute I said that, I knew that the 2 daughters had to be named Priscilla and Lisa Marie. And that was what set me off on writing the book. And I had to do all this research with Elvis. I'd listened to his music nonstop. I read all this stuff about him. I mean, I plowed his music into the prose of that book. And I came away with it. I came away from it with both vast respect and vast pity for him. And as I said, my family and I have stayed Elvis fans ever since. In fact, what we used to have when the kids were living at home and everything, we used to have big parties on his birthday, which is January 8th.
Right.
So anyway, that was the story of and so Graceland was first published in 1992 by Grove Press.
Right.
And then just this year, just 2022, Paint Creek Press has reissued the book, so it's got a brand new edition, newly available, and I'm really pleased with it. It's part of a uniform trade paperbacks reissues of some of my work. And also all these. There's a whole bunch of blog posts about Graceland on my website, which is just laurakalpakian.com.
And Paint Creek Books, how did that come about? Paint Creek?
Paint Creek Press. They're out of Wisconsin. They're out of Wisconsin, right.
So did you approach them, or they approached you, or how did
they approached me? They approached me, and much of my work had been out of print for a long time, and so slowly, we're reprinting some of these books, not all of them, but some of them. So, and Graceland was the 4th or 5th, I think.
And Graceland was also made into a TV movie, The Woman Who Loved Elvis. Yep. With Roseanne and Tom. Okay.
Right.
So it's probably still out there somewhere if somebody wants to track it down on one of the many services we have there.
I kind of doubt it. I think that movie, they had a bitter divorce, and that movie got lost in the middle of it. I don't think you can find it anymore. And it's no particular loss. I didn't think it was great. So. Well,
there you go. What can you do sometimes? What are you up to these days? You involved with Whatcom Community College, are you?
No, I don't teach.
Oh, okay.
I do the occasional Zoom class I work with a group out of North Carolina called the Flatiron Writers Room. I teach for them. And but other than that, I do some independent editing, and I have my own work. Of course, I'm working on a new novel. So.
And your hobbies include cooking, I understand.
I do. I like to feed people. It's true. I do like to feed people. So. Anyway, what brought you to Garden Street in the 90s?
Well, I was living in Vancouver, BC, and met a woman at a bar in Blaine. One thing led to another, and we got married, and then we subsequently parted ways, and I moved back to Radisson, Saskatchewan. Well, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, so... That's a long story in a short version, but I went to Whatcom Community College. I didn't start university till I was 40, so I went a couple classes of Whatcom and a couple at Western, and then I did the Board of Governors degree through Western Illinois University, which apparently was where Chuck from Village Books went, so...
Oh, wow. right. That's an interesting connection. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't never set foot on the campus. It was all distant learning.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
So I got that
Good.
when I was 47. So don't let anybody tell you it can't be done. So
That's right, and it's never too late.
never too late. So what can you tell us about advice that you pass on to writers? Over the years, you must come up with the same amount of things that everybody asks, and you give them the same tips.
I do, and I did teach for like 20 years, and in fact, I mainly taught memoir, and I had a book out just last year called Memory into Memoir, which is about writing memoir. So that book is full of like the various pearls of wisdom that I would offer writers, not just of memoir, but fiction and creative nonfiction as well, right? So, the only real writing class that I ever took was high school journalism. And when I worked on the high school newspaper, and the teacher there impressed upon us, never start a sentence with it. So I would say that if I have a particular pet peeve, and anyone who's ever worked with me knows this, I don't like sentences that start with it.
It was a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night, right? So, but all the rest of it, all the rest of like 30 years of working and writing and teaching and of course a lifetime of reading, I crammed all that into Memory into Memoir, which was published by the University of New Mexico Press.
And you also had an earlier book, The Memoir Club, as I'm reading.
Yes, that was a novel.
Right. So it's about women who are working on their own memoirs. So
right.
Memory writing seems to be a big fad these days, just like genealogy was a couple of years ago. So
well, you know, it's true that if you, I think it's important to put down stuff on paper, because after you go, people have questions, and or they might have questions, and if you have a chance to clarify some of this and, you know, tell what was important to you, and I think that most lives, I mean, they're just, the way I think about memoir is I think of it less as a blanket or a sheet over the past, and more like a patchwork quilt. You know, you have this incident and that incident and this incident and that incident, and even writing them separately, they can all come together. You know, so I love reading memoirs, and I love teaching memoirs, and I've even written a memoir. So you know, there was that.
And your most recent work, so you're working on that now, you can't tell us about it yet?
No, I never talk about my work in progress.
Right, I know what you mean. And The Walking Dead, is that big in your household?
Are you referring to my son?
Well, I didn't want to bring it up if I couldn't, but I did, yes.
Yeah. Actually, I don't watch The Walking Dead. It's too gory for me. But I am enthralled with his newest project, which is The Lord of the Rings on Amazon, The Rings of Power. He's the composer on that.
And that's Bear McCreary.
Bear McCreary is my eldest son, right. Brendan McCreary is my younger.
Yeah, is Bear like a real name or a family nickname?
Well, if that story is going to be told, he should tell it.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just kind of wondered, but...
No, it's his name, you know, and it always has been. I mean, he graduated from high school with Bear, he graduated from college as Bear, so...
High school was Bellingham High, wasn't it?
That's right. He went to Bellingham, graduated in 1997.
1997. I've got a friend who lives in Blaine. We used to play hockey together. I probably graduated around the same time, but... Who knows? So one more question. What can you give us as a tip for writing memoirs? Maybe the best one you can provide to people.
Well, here's what I would say. If you think that most people, when they think about writing a memoir, they go, "Oh, I don't have too much to say." But I would say that if you once start writing, you will find that everything you thought you forgot will come back to you, and that it will accrue. And so if you think you don't know where to begin, I always suggest that you start with your addresses. Everyone can remember their addresses. And, you start with this address, and then just keep writing about it. And pretty soon, it's not just a house. Pretty soon, you've got memories in the house. You got the neighbors up the street, the school down the block, and that it will. That what I have found is that when you take memory, you transform it into memoir. That what you're doing is the past is sometimes hard to nail down, and so you start with something that is solid, like an address, and then your memories and all this will flow out of that, and then you just have to connect them. So that would be, and actually that suggestion is also in my book, Memory into Memoir.
Okay, let's look for that, Memory into Memoir by Laura Kalpakian. Laura, Laura. Kalpakian is Kalpakian.
Right.
Look up Graceland, now that there's a big revival of Elvis with that movie out there and everything. And then look up the book about writing memoirs. So I know you have to dash. Laura, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis, thank you very much. Thanks for reaching out to us to do this interview, and good luck with all your future endeavors. I've enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.